My name is Allison Christensen, and I'm a school psychologist in the Bellevue School District. And I've worked in the Bellevue School District 18 years, and every year I've helped with early entrance to kindergarten. Just in the last 2 years, though, I volunteered to become the coordinator of the early entrance to kindergarten program. So I'm the one who does the parent information night, and I'm also the one you'll see if your child comes to the testing appointment. Tonight's presentation, we're going to start with talking about child development. I'll go over the testing application and the process, and then at the end, we're going to have a question and answer time. But hopefully, most of your questions will be answered during this presentation. So to start the presentation, I always like to ask for a show of hands of how many of you have students already in the Bellevue School District. Can you raise your hands? Wow. Okay, that's like the majority of you, so definitely it looked like 3/4 of the group already have students here in Bellevue. Terrific. So then the rest of you, just a few of you, this will be your first student, your first child entering public schools and formal education. Okay, well, it's an important decision when to enter your child into school, starting their educational career. So thank you for coming out tonight and getting more information to help you make this important decision. So I just want to review our Bellevue School policy on early entrance to kindergarten. Our Washington state cutoff has an age requirement to enter kindergarten of 5 by August 31st. And for those kids whose birthdays fall September, October, November, we have this exception called early entrance to kindergarten. So they would be the youngest in their class if they were to pass the testing and come in. And we also ask that you have proof of residency when you apply for testing. Let's talk a little bit about kindergarten. 20 years ago, kindergarten looked a lot different. It was much more about social skills development and exploring to learn. It looked a lot more like preschool does. Nowadays, it's much more academically rigorous. And the kids do much more than just learn to read. And it sounds like most of you know that if you have other students in the Bellevue School District already. I like to also let parents know that some parents, up to 10%, opt to hold their kids out and begin kindergarten at age 6 years of age. And a lot of reasons this is, for the reasons that this is done, they more often are boys, and it's often done for sports, and it's called redshirting. And parents do this because they want their children or their boys to play sports later on and have more physical maturity. And so we will have typically boys who will be starting kindergarten at age 6. And so that just increases the age range of the children in our kindergarten classroom. And it's important to know and think about that your child will be with kids that are definitely 1 year older than them, and on average, probably 6 months older than them. And in a short child's life, that can mean a lot. It can make a difference. The other thing about kindergarten is that our class size, we have about 1 adult to 22 or 26 students. So it's very different than our preschool size student-teacher ratio, which is on average probably 2 adults to about 16 kids, 14, 16 kids. So quite different, and the kids need to be able to function in that larger group and have much more independence. So for kindergarten readiness, we have guidelines and assessments that we do, and as you came in tonight, we had a handout on our Bellevue School District guidelines for kindergarten readiness. That was that colored sheet that you saw, that flyer, and it lists all the different areas and what the readiness skills are in each of those important developmental areas. We like to look at the whole child and consider various aspects of their development. So their large and fine motor skills, their coordination, their social-emotional skills, their cognitive skills, and their language skills. And all of you are parents and maybe have multiple kids. You know that each child is unique and they develop in their own way at their own time and pacing. So we also have a link right there that goes to our Bellevue School District Readiness Guidelines for kindergarten. So what are some predictors of kindergarten success? In the pre-academic skill area, we like to see kids coming in with early math concepts, knowledge of numbers and ordinality. And this means that they know that 100 is bigger than 30, and they can put them in order. Early language and reading skills, so they have a good vocabulary. They're understanding letters and identifying letters. They're beginning to sound out words, and they know their letter sounds. And then a general knowledge of the world around them, curiosity about science and nature. Some other predictors are their developmental skills. And possibly because I'm a counselor and a psychologist, I view these as very important to their success in school. So verbal skills are critical. Auditory memory is the ability to repeat or answer back verbatim what the teacher has told them. And verbal reasoning is, again, explaining their thinking clearly so that others can understand them. Persistence, that's something we talk a lot about in school at all the varying grades. So if they can show persistence and task persistence and not give up or get easily frustrated, that is a life skill, but we really try to ingrain that skill in our students all through the Bellevue School District. Attentiveness is very important. How long can they stay and pay attention in a large group? So circle time and rug time, whole group time when there's instruction is very important. In kindergarten, it's about 15-20 minutes at the start of the year, and at the end of the year, the teachers are expecting 20 to 30 minutes of attention span. Their emotional and behavioral regulation skills, that's the ability to manage their emotions and their behavior or actions. And for parents, a term you might know more or be more familiar with is impulse control. And kindergarten teachers rank self-regulation skills as more important than the pre-academic skills. Fine motor and visual motor skills. This is the pre-writing skills. So learning to draw, copying shapes, the visual memory is really important so that they can distinguish an X from a T. They need to come in with those developmental skills. So child development in the area of intellectual and academic learning. What I'd like you to do is look at these different columns and think about where your child falls right now in these two different areas. Are they more like a preschooler or are they performing more like a 5-year-old? And that may help you decide whether to go for doing this testing process. So preschoolers typically will ask questions and are curious to explore the world around them. A 5-year-old will relate information learned about the natural world and make connections. A preschooler can count more than 10 objects correctly. And a 5-year-old has counting down, and they're starting to make adding and subtraction and understand that concept and also do maybe easy word problems. They're starting to learn, preschoolers, the letter-sound relationships. And a 5-year-old is starting to learn to sound out a word. So cat, cat. The language really takes off in preschool years. So a preschooler has a receptive vocabulary of several hundred words. Receptive vocabulary is they can understand what word you're saying. So vocabulary, they could point to a picture. If you showed them 3 pictures, they could point to the correct one. And a 5-year-old will have extensive vocabulary and more technical words. For doctor, they might say pediatrician, more sophisticated in their language and vocabulary. A preschooler will be able to describe characteristics of objects like a bike, has 2 wheels and a handlebar, versus a 5-year-old who would be able to explain the simple relationship between different modes of transportation like a car, a bus, and a bike. In the social-emotional area, there's quite a difference between 3- and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, isn't there? For preschoolers, they can focus on a task of interest, and a 5-year-old will have more focus ability and be able to see a task through, whereas a younger child kind of jumps from thing to thing, right? They have much shorter attention span. They'll use maybe 2 strategies to solve a problem. versus a 5-year-old who will accept kind of reasonable challenges and consequences possibly, and maybe will understand that they need to keep trying or give it their best and can continue through frustration, versus a preschooler who's going to get maybe just give up, discouraged, cry, get more emotional, and needs more help with their strong feelings, versus the 5-year-old who usually can problem solve, say okay, ask for help, or they can take a break or walk away from that individual without fighting or crying. In the area of fine motor skills, a preschooler will be able to recognize and write the letters. They're starting to write their name, versus a 5-year-old who will definitely come in to kindergarten writing their name, hopefully, and also having some words that they can write, and some, we call it, kid spelling, where they're guessing and going on their spelling. A preschooler can copy basic shapes, versus the 5-year-old who will do much more detailed drawings. So, what does the research say about early entry? The kindergartners who are successful, that come in as younger students, have more advanced skills in a multiple of domains. So not just one area, but the whole child is advanced in their skill development. They also will have parents and a kindergarten teacher who supports early entry and are realistic in their expectations. I think that's really critical, because there will be some differences, and they need to be understanding and also maybe have some accommodations for that student. And then the research shows that they will achieve as much as a 5-year-old of similar intelligence too. So they can do just fine academically. So we are wanting to talk about what are exceptional 4-year-olds, that this would be important for them to start schooling early, is that they show more than one area ahead of their peers by at least a quarter of their age. Quarter of their age, that's a lot in their short lifetime. That they have early verbal ability, that they have strong mathematical skills, a longer attention span than their peers. When you're at play groups and you're watching your child or playground and you see how the kids are performing and you can kind of see that your child will stick it out longer than some other kids, you might think, okay, their attention span, they have persistence, they show perseverance, they have a lower frustration threshold than other kids. So you may witness this in their interactions and seeing them play with other children their age. Or maybe the preschool teacher tells you, wow, so-and-so can really, stay on task. He's a great listener, really tries hard. And then also that they have an early ability to reason abstractly. So lots of those curiosities that are hard to quench, they really are eager to learn. So let's say you do decide to go ahead with the early entrance process, and the assessment team does recommend that they start kindergarten in the fall this year. Some of the possible disadvantages could be that they would experience some pressure in kindergarten grade. So we do sometimes find that we'll make the recommendation for a child, and then that child will experience some anxiety or be a little anxious or more emotional, that maybe they fatigue for the 6-hour day. It's just too long a day for them because they are 4, and it's just harder for them to have the stamina. So some added pressure. I really stress this point with parents, that you're starting their educational career, that they will be the youngest in their class of peers, and that there could be down the road when they're in high school some issues that come up for you in parenting them. So I know as parents we don't like to think of our kids being 16-year-olds and dating, but they will grow up and they will be that age. And so thinking about what are some peer pressures that they may run into, will they have the common sense, the good judgment to be on the younger side in their peer group and handle those pressures that come with being an adolescent these days. Also, physical size, that's just maturity, puberty, and that comes with time. So thinking about those long-term issues for your child is really important. There also can be a potential disadvantage for boys. There is a gender difference, and maybe some of you have a girl and a boy and have seen those differences. And here in school, where they show the most, is that we typically will see that the younger boys have a harder time paying attention. They are active and energetic, and so their attention span tends to be on the shorter side for their age and gender versus girls. And that's at the early age of kindergarten. Even if they were 5 coming in, we see that. And then we also tend to see with boys that the fine motor skills develop after girls' fine motor skills. And you may see this too in your own children, that the girls tend to draw and write and color more than the boys. Now again, this is a gender difference, it's stereotypical, but there's some truth to that. And so we do see the younger boys come in and struggle, not just in that first year of kindergarten, but in first, second, third grade, those primary years, they have a hard time keeping pace with the writing expectations in school. And they can get really frustrated and turned off to writing if they struggle with their fine motor skills. And I think a lot of it is practice. They were just late in learning their fine motor skills, developing those fine motor skills, and it just takes more time for those to develop, and so they're kind of always behind the game. So something to think about too. And if they did start kindergarten, we would really work with them to be successful. We want them to be successful. That's why we do this testing, and we set the criteria so that they will be successful. But sometimes, if it's a rough year or they're not doing so well, the guidance team at your school, your neighborhood school where they attend, would talk to you about possibly repeating kindergarten. Now, that's a last resort. We don't like to do it because we worry about the effects on their self-esteem. So it's usually not done. We usually have other interventions that are done instead, but I just want to say that's a possibility if it didn't go well. And then research does say that for the younger children in a grade, that they tend to be the followers and not the leaders. So again, wanting you to think about the long-term consequences of starting your child in school as the younger in their class compared to their peers, that this could possibly happen, that they would tend to be more hesitant or reluctant or less self-assured with the older kids in their class, and possibly the older kids, would be more controlling of them, I guess I would say. But, they aren't as, you want your child to have more self-confidence. I think we all do for our kids. So that also is a possibility if kids are on the younger side for their grade. The benefits of entering with your peers with the same age kids is that there's another year to develop further critical skills that are helpful in school, like the literacy, mathematics, attention, persistence, and the self-regulation skills. Our social-emotional skills are crucial for success in school. Something new in the Bellevue School District is that we are now identifying children in kindergarten for our gifted programs. So that's also a good thing to think about. They're screened in the fall, and then at the second half of kindergarten, when they're identified, if they reach the criteria and are identified, the teacher will differentiate their instruction, and they'll have some enrichment activities to meet their intellectual needs. And then in first grade, they would have that same, it would be at their neighborhood school for kindergarten, first grade, that the classroom teachers would do that. And then come second grade, they'd have the option to go to our gifted-centered schools. So that's new. We're now identifying kindergartners as gifted or highly capable students. And then for our English language learners, we have many kids that speak multiple languages at home, more than English. And this additional year of development would give them a greater English proficiency. So when they come into school, they're more readily able to express their wants and needs and be able to understand increasingly complex language that we use when teaching children, the academic language. So now I'll talk a little bit about the application process. The application forms will be available in February, and our application deadline is April 1st. A completed packet will consist of a few things. We have an application form that gives us permission to do the testing. There's a parent questionnaire. It's two-sided. There's some developmental questions we ask of you, just short answer. And then on the back side, there's a behavior rating part where you answer some questions about your child, if they exhibit these behaviors, rarely, sometimes, or often. So it's a little checklist on behaviors. And there is a fee for this testing. It's non-refundable. It's $175. And then if that's a financial hardship, we do have some paperwork that you can complete and turn in for the minimal fee of $25. You must submit proof of residency, and there's various ways of doing this, and we have that on our application checklist of ways you can do that. Tonight, we asked you to sign in to show your attendance here at the Parent Information Night, so thank you for doing that. For those parents who were unable to attend, this will be posted on our website, and they are to view it and then also sign their initials on the application packet that they listened to and watched this presentation. And then we also ask that you have your preschool teacher, your child's preschool teacher, complete a questionnaire about them too. And it's really nice to get that teacher's input because they are experts knowing kids at that developmental age and whether your child is advanced in these areas. And what we're asking you to do too is to print out the preschool or daycare providers or print out the preschool teacher's questionnaire and then take it to your daycare provider or preschool teacher along with a self-addressed envelope so that they can fill it out and mail it in directly to our Department of Early Learning. And then this way we just know that it's been filled out confidentially. So that's really important if you would just turn it into your preschool teacher to submit to us directly. The testing dates are end of April and the beginning of May. And the testing sites are at an elementary school. And we will include a map of how to get to that elementary school along with a parent rating form in our letter that schedules the testing appointment for you. Then we have the assessment areas, which I've covered tonight, that are important. It's the cognitive or intellectual abilities, their fine and gross motor skills. When I say large and gross, jumping, hopping, skipping, we look at their overall coordination, and then the fine motor is the pre-writing skills. Their visual motor skills, this is important for them to have visual discrimination skills that helps them with their reading and in writing. And again, the social-emotional piece is really crucial, and we need for you to tell us about that because you know your child best, and so that's the parent rating scale we give you to fill out on your child's behavior. And then there's a language assessment done too. Our assessment team consists of the psychologist, a kindergarten teacher, and a speech and language pathologist. The psychologist does the intellectual cognitive abilities test. The kindergarten teacher will do the motor and the visual discrimination test. And the speech and language pathologist is the one that gives the language assessment. The length of testing is approximately 1 hour. Sometimes it takes a little longer. It just depends on the kiddo. So I like to give you a little grace period when you plan on that testing appointment. So, max would be 1.5 hours probably. Usually is only 1 hour. And our tests are administered in English only. We don't have a translator. And then it's a one-on-one situation too, which is good to know. They're not group tested. It's the child moves from one assessor to the next. So they spend about 20 minutes with each of the testers doing the activities, 20 to 25 minutes, one-on-one. And the parents wait in a waiting area. And then the parent rating forms can either be turned in when you come to that appointment, or you can fill them out at that time, and we'll have extra forms for you in case you forget them. It takes about 20 minutes to do that behavior rating form. So then we evaluate how they performed on our testing, on our measures that we give. And we have criteria in all those 5 areas that they must meet or exceed. So in the area for cognitive intellectual development, we're looking for a standard score of greater than or equal to 120. And the other areas must be at least 6 months advanced of the child's chronological age. So if they come in the spring for testing, they're going to be about 4.5. And so we're looking for them to perform like a 5-year-old. And we do fall testing for those families that move into our district over the summer. And so again, the fall testing would be when they do that, 5.5 age equivalency scores. And then we really do, read your questions and your responses about your child's development and the preschool teachers, and we weigh those heavily too when our team meets and we make our decision. You would be notified about 2 weeks after the testing date. And I think I already said this, that the recommendation for early entrance is given if a child meets or exceeds scoring criteria in all developmental areas and demonstrates a high cognitive ability. Your neighborhood school would be notified, and we have the name of your neighborhood school on the application form that you fill out. And next, you would need to take that acceptance letter to your neighborhood school and register them within like a 2-week window after you receive the letter, so make a decision quickly after that. And then this is really important to stress also, and for you to know, that we do have a trial period for kids that do come in early entrance. Even if they get the green light to start in the fall, that we have a trial period of 4 to 6 weeks to see how they adjust and how they function in the kindergarten setting. And your guidance team consists of the school counselor, the principal, that kindergarten teacher, and sometimes some other members are on that team. But it's the team in your neighborhood school that would make that determination. If there were any concerns, that they would contact you and talk to you about possibly recommending that it would be more appropriate to come in the following year. We don't like to have to do that, but sometimes it is really in the best interest of the kid. And then the appeals. Parents have the right to appeal the early entrance to kindergarten assessment team's decision. And a written appeal has to be submitted to our supervisor of EEC, which is in the early learning department, and her name is Deborah Deutsch. And that has to be 10 days after the letter that you received, the date on the letter that you would receive from me with the team recommendation. And then there's an appeal committee that reviews your appeal and makes the final decision, and it cannot be challenged. So this is the data. Over the past 4 years, we have assessed 282 children. 16 children met criteria and were recommended. That's 6%, very few, but they have been successful, so that's the good news. Next steps for all of you. After attending this meeting tonight, I would recommend that you go to your kindergarten informational meeting at your neighborhood school. Those are happening end of this month, beginning of next month, because kindergarten registration is next month, as you probably already know, is in February. You'll get to meet the principal and the other kindergarten teachers, hear more about the curriculum and behavioral expectations. And then submit your application packet. You can either mail it in or drop it off at our Educational Service Center. And we're doing something different this year so that we don't get bombarded with applications like we did last year right up until April 1st. So if you submit your application before March 13th, we'll really try to, we will do a notification of your testing appointment so that you'll have a month ahead of time, hopefully, before your testing appointment. So we want to give you some time for planning. So please submit your applications earlier than later, I guess is what I'm saying. Then we have our early entrance kindergarten, and there's lots of great information on our website, and we'll post the testing dates as soon as we know them. The location won't be posted, though. That will come out to you probably in your testing letter about your appointment time. I would recommend that you wait till March to give your teacher questionnaire to your preschool teacher. Just gives them a little more time to get to know your child even that much better. And kids change month to month, so the most current data is always helpful. And remember to give them a self-addressed envelope. That really helps so that they can just ship it off in the mail to us. And then bring your child the day of the testing appointment. And that will be end of April, beginning of May. So now it's time for questions and answers. Did I whiz through that? Nope, 7:40, that's good. So if you have a question, we have 2 mics up front here. If you want to please speak loudly into those. And then that way everyone in the room can hear your question. And then you can return to your seat. Thank you. Come on up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have 2 questions. What if you're interested in enrolling your child in a choice school like Puesta del Sol? How does that work with the testing?
Okay, well, our test results don't come out until May.
Okay.
So for that, our choice schools, open enrollment is now.
Right. So they would not be eligible. Okay. And then the other question is, what if you are your own child's preschool teacher?
Oh, that's a new one. Okay, I would try to get a more, I'm just thinking is there another teacher in the classroom or someone else you could ask to complete that? No.
I mean, there's...
or a teacher last year, maybe?
No, there's church teachers, but she's been at home with me, so I've preschooled her myself.
Okay. You're right. We were wanting someone different.
Yeah.
So don't worry about submitting it. We know that for some families, they're not in a preschool setting.
Right.
Right? So that's okay. It's optional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hi. Thank you for your presentation. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering if this slide deck is available online.
Yes. This will be
so
posted.
I can show my wife. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. This should be posted in a few days.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add on to her thing about the choice schools.
Okay.
I was actually told that you could enter the lottery process, and then it's just based on if they pass the test or not.
Oh, good. Thank you for that correction then. Okay. Thank you for making that clear. So she had heard that, yes, you could enter the choice school lottery, even though they don't meet our age requirement. And then based on the testing, you could see if you have a slot at that school. So good. Thank you for that clarification.
Hi. Is it possible to send our child to a school which is not our local area school?
So this is an open enrollment question. So
Yeah.
not your neighborhood school?
Yeah.
Okay. So our open enrollment period is before kindergarten registration. So no, it's not for early entrance candidates. But for the following year when they're first graders, you would be able to do it. So say your child did pass the testing and was recommended to start this fall, they would need to go to their neighborhood school.
Okay.
But then the year after that, well, not the year, in the year, right, for open enrollment, this time next year,
Okay.
you could then try for a different school.
For the next session.
For the next year, so for first grade.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hi, I have 2 questions. Do you have any data on those kids who are accepted into the early kindergarten program going on to be part of the gifted program?
No, and that is data I've wanted to collect.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. I mean, I do think it's a strong percentage because these kids are often really advanced cognitively. So it could be a good percentage of the kids.
Okay. And then my second question is, I mean, other than the child's at home longer with me, is there a disadvantage to being the oldest child in a classroom? You know, there's kind of a little stigmata, but from your
So
profession.
your question is there a disadvantage for being on the older side of the class?
So, you know, you just hold them back. She's the oldest kid in school. Is there like a disadvantage that's pretty well documented, or is it just, you know, they get to stay home?
In my research that I've done, it's more on the younger side that shows the disadvantage. On the older side, it's that they come in with better development in all their areas of skills. And unless they were held back, maybe, you know, if that information gets out, then sometimes that can be a stigma. Mm-hmm. But if they just, you know, my parents wanted me to start kindergarten at 6, and I'm 6, and my birthday, it's more advantageous. The kids are always wanting to grow up, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hi. You talked about the disadvantages of early entrance. What are the advantages of early entrance? Because I guess if there were only disadvantages, then you wouldn't be offering early entrance.
Right. Well, for some children, it is, they are ready to come in and can be successful. So I think the advantage is that they just start their career that much sooner, and the intellectual stimulation that they have coming on to kindergarten and meeting their needs that way, instead of doing another year of preschool or pre-K. But did that answer your question? A little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was just wondering is there a disadvantage to staying in preschool 1 year longer to make sure that they are ready in every aspect?
No, I do not think so. I think our kids grow up very fast these days, and so to have an extra year of childhood, I think is okay. I think it's a gift in some ways. But you all know your children best, and clearly there are some kids who come in as early entrants and do just fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that reminded me, for those of you who want to proceed with the testing after hearing this talk, that it's good to have a plan B, because just in case your child is, not recommended to start this fall and are going to come in the following year, you want to be sure to have them registered for a preschool, another year of preschool program, or a pre-K program. And I would highly recommend, if your child's been in the same setting for possibly 2 years, that you look for maybe a new setting for them, just so that they're able to kind of roll with the changes and a new setting, a new environment, new adults, and be comfortable with that could be very advantageous to them too, having a smoother start to kindergarten.
So we're actually trying to compare the difference between public kindergarten versus private kindergarten. If they do get accepted, is there a chance that, do they have to register right when the acceptance is made, or can a decision be made mid-year, or, a different time in the year?
Right. So usually we ask parents to, once you get that acceptance letter, that you go to your neighborhood school and register. Certainly, if you have applied to a private school and haven't heard yet, that you could go back to the public school and withdraw. That would be fine. But to hold your spot in the public school is a good thing to do. We will take all kids that come into the neighborhood school. If they're in our attendance area, though, we take all the kids that walk in the door.
Okay, so what if they attend a private kindergarten? What kind of, is it guaranteed first grade? They move on, or?
Right. So if your child was to participate in a year of private school, and then you register your child as a first grader for the following year, there is a process that we look at as the guidance team. So we would assess them the first month of September, see where their skills fell, and if they were right where they needed to be in their academic skills, behavior was no concern, they would proceed on. If there were concerns, we would talk to you about a grade adjustment and to be with their same age peers.
Okay.
So it's not a guarantee. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
As you said, as a backup plan, okay, my child is in preschool currently, is trying for this program. Okay, as he succeed, he will be go. If not, we need to again apply the current academic year to next academic year.
Mm-hmm.
He can be in the same preschool school.
I'm not sure I understand your question. So
Okay.
if he doesn't qualify to come in this fall for kindergarten, he would repeat another year in the preschool? Is that what you're asking?
He can be continue in the current school without applying, or need to apply?
You would need to apply for another year of preschool.
Okay, what will be the dates?
What would be the start dates?
Dates of applying in the current school.
For preschool, you mean?
Yes.
I don't know the preschool. You probably do, Alicia. Yeah.
You ready, ma'am? If I am not, my son is not qualified for that examination, we need still continue.
So Alicia is a coordinator of our preschools in our district, so maybe she can answer this question.
Yeah, if I get it right. If your child attends Bellevue School District preschool right now this year, you are considered a returning family for next year, and registration will open January 28th. You have between January 28th and February 2nd to turn in an application as a priority. And a priority includes currently enrolled families and all Bellevue School District staff. So you're not just competing for slots with other returning parents, but also Bellevue School District staff. If you have never been in the Bellevue School District preschool, registration will open on February 2nd, either 1st or 2nd, and the materials will be available online. So registration will start for anybody not in the district February 2nd, and programs, depending on their location, do fill up fast. We have filled up a preschool classroom in a week. If you have specific questions about the preschool program, you can call the early learning department and ask questions about what programs are available. You can go online. There are a number of programs. We serve about 800, almost 900 preschoolers a day, and our curriculum does align with the Bellevue School District literacy curriculum as well. So my son has gone through it and did really well and was ready for kindergarten as a kindergartner this year. So it's a great pre-K program. So feel free to call the early learning office and we can give you all the information.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
And their number is 456-4030 if you need their number. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming. If you want to turn in a question to us, if it didn't get answered, we will also make sure that those go up on our frequently asked questions on our website. Thank you for coming.